As entrepreneurs, John and I have built digital video businesses across the continent, him in Los Angeles and me in Montreal. But we've tackled the market in very different ways, him finding a way to monetize user-generated content, and me ultimately building a media business around fair use. And yes, while our businesses have on a couple of occasions butted heads in the industry, my relationship with John is actually a testament to not just the respect I have for him and the business, but the camaraderie that exists amongst entrepreneurs. All right, John, so 2006, Time Magazine chooses you, not you, but you, user-generated content, as the person of the year. So it was clear that UGC was going to change a lot of things in media and publishing. What was the first time that you kind of saw the power of UGC and said, hey, I see a business there?
Well, it's interesting that you chose 2005 because it's actually for two reasons. One being that's when YouTube started. But it was also interesting because that was really when my career started. I moved out to LA from Chicago. I worked on some films out there, but I moved out to LA to start my career in Hollywood and media entertainment. And I've been around UGC pretty much my entire career. And I don't know if you know this about me, but one of my first jobs working in media entertainment was working on a derivative version of America's Funniest Home Videos of a clip show. And actually my job every day was to go to the P.O. box and pick up a bunch of VHS tapes from Mid-America. Because the only way that we could get content for our show and clear that content was for people to submit their video through the snail mail. We had a call to action at every episode, send in your tape for a chance to be on the show. And it was actually my job to go to the P.O. box and come back and look through these really old VHS tapes. At the time, it felt very archaic system. 2005 doesn't seem that long ago, which is kind of crazy. And my job was to look through these really bad tapes. And if they were any good, maybe 1 out of 10 of them were good, any good, I had to call up that person, kind of read their handwriting and say, hey, can we get additional footage? Can we get additional clearance information? And by the time I got all that information, they signed the contract, it would be a week or two, or sometimes longer to clear one piece of content. And so, working in this industry that was very analog system at the time and being archaic, I really took advantage of online video. And YouTube kind of launching was a platform that happened to be an early adopter and thought it was very fascinating. And I actually told my producers, because I was pretty low on the totem pole, said, hey, we should go on YouTube and sign up for this website. It looks like there's some good content here. It looks like the owners of the content, we can direct message them, clear that content a lot easier. And you know what they told me? They said, shut up, kid, go to the P.O. box.
I love it.
But I really took advantage of that content. And so really, I saw the really early days of, I was in a really inflection point that I saw this analog system of people sending in tapes to really UGC and then see it transforming to digital. And so I was really one of the first guys at that time to really leverage online video, leverage YouTube to help find content, source content, and then license that content digitally and put that onto television.
So much entrepreneurial success comes from some boss saying, shut up, kid, go do this. So we need that. It's funny, yeah, when we would sign licensing deals, most of the time, because video files were so big, we couldn't even upload and we had so many. So
Sure.
I remember FedExing drives and going, there's gotta be a better way than this. But yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago, but that's how it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's now go through, you come across YouTube, right? Was it clear to you that YouTube was going to be the winner? Because there was Dailymotion, MetaCafe, or do you kind of describe YouTube interchangeably for online video?
Well, it's interesting. I remember just kind of thinking back about that time because there were other sites. You just mentioned Dailymotion, Break was there, or Big Boys it was called. There's a lot of different sites that was hosting video. But I think the problem with those sites, they didn't feel trustworthy. The user experience wasn't there. Part of that because the technology wasn't quite there yet on those early 1.0 video platform days. But also hosted like a lot of mixture of content, whether it was a family video or jackass wannabes, guys jumping off roofs, lighting their hairs on fire, getting kicked in the nuts, that sort of thing. So it wasn't really family friendly. It wasn't really safe. And for whatever reason, YouTube just felt a lot safer. It actually felt like the owner was uploading that content. You could see in the comments it said, my cousin or my brother or my husband did such and such and such and such. So it was just had a different user experience than some of those other previous sites.
It's fascinating you say that because the knock on YouTube early on was anything goes, pirated content. But you're right that they definitely did have this, this folksy feel where it was the person uploading it.
Absolutely.
So you really deserve a lot of credit. Like when people talk to me about like who are some of the pioneers, like the crazy misfits who saw things differently, I'm always quick to include you because UGC was powerful in the context of Egypt blows up, the people go out there, record the revolution, put it on YouTube. You knew that UGC was going to be critically important, revolutionary. But very few people, myself included, felt that there was actually a commercial business in UGC.
Yeah.
You were one of the few that saw that early. Why did you believe in user-generated content, even though if you line up 10 advertisers, most of them are like, no, we don't like UGC, it's unsafe or unsavory?
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate the compliment there. I think I always just responded well to watching that type of content, and I think most people do. I think there's a reason why people stop and watch a car accident or see the aftermath of the car accident. I think it feels very real, feels authentic, it's organic. You can't remanufacture some of these moments. A lot of these moments are lightning the bottle moments. You can't remanufacture. I mean, there's a lot of our value prop today when we talk to advertisers or brands or television shows, that this content is very real. And I still feel, that's what I felt back then, and that's what I still feel today. And I think there's an appetite for this content that people want to watch, they want to experience it. There's that kind of voyeuristic kind of curiosity that I think all humans have. And there's just something so interesting about it, that something just, I was fascinated by this content. And I just knew, I just had this kind of underlining feeling that this content was just going to get more popular, especially as technology advanced, especially when you saw the proliferation of smartphones. I remember, I have a liberal arts degree, film. I love long form film. I never thought I'd kind of be in the short form world, but just seeing how fast technology advanced from 2005 to 2009, I mean, it was light years. I couldn't watch any video that was shot on a dumb phone. The pixelation, it was just so bad. You couldn't watch it, but all of a sudden smartphones came out, and it just revolutionized technology in the way that we consume content, the way that we were able to shoot it, the way that we were to share the content. I just knew right then and there this thing was going to take off.
Yeah, so being based in Canada, I remember one of my colleagues came down to the US in 2007 and he showed me the iPhone. And I just looked at it and I was like, yep, it's like, it's a new chapter, like it's a new era.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about YouTube and then shift gears to other platforms and come back to Jukin. But do you view YouTube as this kind of like consistent timeline, or do you break down YouTube in different phases, either related to the acquisition by Google, or just do you view it where there are watershed moments in its history, or for you has it been one continuum throughout?
I think it's been continued, but it's obviously evolved over time. It's amazing that was the platform that everyone went on, and it was the platform I think that revolutionized not only online video, but online video creation, right? Thinking about this conference that we're at right now, Vidcon, there's so many platforms today and there's opportunities, but back then it was just a huge opportunity just to be on YouTube. I was thinking about kind of going back, 6-7 years from this conference and coming here in 2012 or so and just thinking the opportunity there is on YouTube, and YouTube's a platform, and YouTube's a platform for creation. It's a platform for monetization. That was never done before. For the first time in history of the world, someone back in Canada or Iowa, or pick your favorite state or country, can shoot this really great piece of content and share it with the world, and that content has the potential to be seen by millions and millions of people.
Yeah, and even the first time when I just came across the concept of embedding a video, my mind was blown. I was like, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of success on YouTube, but I think you guys are bigger on Facebook.
I think when you look at today, you look at viewership, we've had a lot of success on YouTube. When you look at viewership and monetization, yeah, we're doing really well on Facebook. But I think for us now, we've been really good. I think I'll credit myself and the people at Jukin, that we've been really good at kind of skating where the puck is going and where the puck has been. So whatever platform that's going to launch next, we know our content's going to do really well. We know that we have to not only licensed content for ourselves, but also then program content on that platform. And so for us, I think we've been really good at trying to find where that next platform is and where to monetize our content.
So speaking of that, again, you deserve a lot of credit because you did evolve very quickly relative to your company history to not just go out there and procure content from others, but you actually went out there and you started to produce yourself, which is a leap of faith. It's a whole other set of headaches. What was that moment? How did that come to be?
So I think when I started Jukin, I thought there was a huge opportunity to create that that nobody was licensing this content to license back to others. No one was creating that marketplace or that platform. And I thought it was a huge opportunity for Jukin to kind of be that Getty Images for user-generated content, for viral videos, whatever you want to call it. And so we were really good at that and building that platform, and we're still building that platform today and evolving that. But at the same time as I always want to be in media entertainment. And as much as I like the licensing side of the business, I really want to be a media company. And how do we become a media company but still stay true to our focus? I mean, at the end of the day, as much as we're licensing this content out, we're exploiting that content and we're monetizing that content. How can I take that one video and monetize that video over and over again? I can do that with licensing, but now how else can I do that in us kind of creating content, curating it, reprogramming it, repackaging that content. So really that helped us think about how else can we create this content, get more eyeballs on it so we can monetize ourselves. And that's how we started creating some consumer-facing brands and channels.
Nice. So what do you see as some other platforms that, I wouldn't say are going to be real giving, competitive threats to YouTube, but that you view bona a solid number 2 that's going to be around in 10 years in video?
Yeah, I think there's no question that Facebook, right? Facebook is huge right now on video. Instagram is big, obviously. I think that they're going to figure out ways how to monetize for creators and channels and brands. I think they have to. I think Snapchat is still very powerful, still a powerful force where there's a lot of eyeballs, especially young eyeballs. When also comes to young eyeballs, TikTok. ByteDance with everything they're doing over there. I think they're investing heavily in this space right now, and so you're going to see some more opportunities there. We have a big focus on connected televisions and OTT. That is growing as well, and so for us, we have to be platform agnostic. We have to be on all those platforms.
Let's talk a little bit about LA, right? When I started my career in media, it was like 2000. I would come to LA once every year, if that. It was always more traditional, more risk averse, like a different universe than New York, right?
Yeah.
How critical? First, let's talk about what are like the core. And I forgot you're actually from Chicago, so I can imagine a guy from Chicago, kind of no nonsense, straight, comes to, straight shooter, comes to LA where you got to kind of decipher what people are saying.
Sure.
So first, let's talk a little bit about how LA was when you arrived here as a backdrop for entrepreneurs and even just for the business climate.
Well, LA is a huge melting pot. Everyone's coming there, from different parts of the world and country. But, it's very intimidating, when you first move out there, especially being, again, like I said, being very low on the totem pole, but there's so much freaking opportunity. And there's more opportunity than anywhere else in the world to be, in LA than to be involved in media entertainment. I mean, I was so green and I was so hungry. And I remember that feeling of being green and hungry and just wanting to learn and just wanting to learn as much as you can so then I can grow my career. And after, I mentioned being a researcher on some of these, on the show, I became a producer. Moved up pretty fast in the chain because I was able to, prove myself. And I started producing a lot of these different type of shows. I worked for a hire producer. I was jumping around from show to show, network to network. But when online video really started taking off here in LA, it was a super, super exciting time. And YouTube obviously being the dominant force. And going back and thinking about the early days of Vidcon, it was super exciting being here. I mean, it felt fresh. Living in LA, it was exciting to be part of that that emergence of technology and entertainment. And there's a lot of capital being poured into the space. There was a lot of folks creating content that people wanted to back. It was a super exciting time.
What are some of like the takeaways you have years into the business advice you would give entrepreneurs when it comes to should I raise capital, how much capital, who to raise from, et cetera?
Right. So I can only talk about my experiences, and luckily for us is that we've been profitable from day one. We have a profitable business model, and that's not going to be always the case. It depends on the business. It depends on the industry. Media entertainment, it's a very tough to be in the media space and content creation space. Is a very tough business. For us, is the money that we have raised has been from some really strategic folks that have been able to add a ton of value to the business, and I think that's super helpful. I think at the end of the day, money is sometimes cheap, and who you get it from is super important, because I think someone once gave me advice is you can divorce your wife, but you can't divorce your investors. They're with you forever, and so as much as you may be pitching them, let them pitch you. And I think that's super important. I'm very happy with the support I've had from the investors that we've had. The money that we've taken, we've never touched. And so even more important for them to be super strategic and super helpful. But I'll say this for any entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what the business is, sometimes you're going to need to raise money and sometimes you're not. And if you don't need to raise money, don't do it. I think sometimes now young entrepreneurs, they see Silicon Valley, they see, they're being impressed by all these VCs and they feel like they have to raise money. If they have these huge valuations, you can get in a lot of trouble. Money doesn't really solve everything. Actually, money probably burns a hole in your pocket.
Yeah, I find like if you have a bunch of problems and you write them down, initially you just throw money at it, and then the next day you're like, money didn't solve most of these problems. Right. You still have to solve them. You just burn.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think not having it kind of forces you to make hard decisions, and how you spend your money and how you allocate capital is really, it's not, when you have a whole, blank check, you're just going to be writing checks all over the place. But when you have a limited amount of funds and capital, it really forces you to make tough decisions and be scrappy and create that MVP and have that MVP mindset throughout the whole company.
So eventually you're going to spend more and more time like being an investor and an advisor to other young entrepreneurs. What do you look for in young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I do a little bit of that. I write some small personal checks myself and advise when I have any free time. But I think it's almost less about the business and it's more about the entrepreneur at the end of the day. It's like, who am I going to invest in? Because they could have a great idea, but if the entrepreneur is not, well suited, it's never going to work. You can have a great entrepreneur and the idea is okay. I'd rather invest in the entrepreneur, and that's who you're investing in at the end of the day.
No, fair enough. Yeah, I think that's always boils down to the people.
Yeah.
Like you spend more time with your colleagues than you spend with your family. So
Totally.
at the end, you have to, that's rule number one.
Yeah.
So YouTube is in a weird spot. It's kind of replaced television as the leading consumption platform. And historically, these Bay Area platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Google, Twitter, all of them, they're like, look, we're a platform, we're not a publisher, we don't want to be responsible, our models are intended to scale, we don't even want to know what's being uploaded. That's starting to change.
Yeah.
Not by voluntarily, but they're being forced to change. What are your thoughts? Like, what is the responsibility that YouTube has to the community of what is uploaded and, the harm to creators? Is it like too bad, or is it no, even if it's reluctant, they need to show accountability and be responsible to the creators?
It's a good question. And I think what we have to realize as content creators and folks using those platforms, and I won't just put YouTube in that bucket, I'll put Facebook in that bucket, is they're going to do what's best for them at the end of the day. They have stockholders that they have to answer to, and they really don't give unfortunately, they don't care about us. I wish they did a little bit more, because I do feel like they do have a responsibility. This is me now personally talking and putting my business hat off, is that they do have a responsibility to the people that help make this platform great. And there are people that are very passionate about these platforms, particularly YouTube, because everyone started on YouTube, especially the legacy people. And I do think that morally they have a responsibility to take care of the folks that help build that platform, help gather millions and millions of views, and I think they've done a poor job doing that.
Interesting. So you have, I'm going to assume, regular conversations with more traditional media companies, just socially meeting them at events and all. Like I every year would chat with more of the New York media types. Like I met with the Times and kind of kept telling them like, look, you got to get more serious with digital, you got to do video, and I felt they were very slow, and I understand why, right? They have businesses to protect. What is your thoughts in general on traditional media like Hollywood entertainment companies? A few years ago, Disney went out and bought Maker. It's easy to second guess that, but now you're seeing they're really like trying only focused with Netflix. That will pass at some point. You know, where do media companies in LA look at like YouTube and what YouTube represents?
Well, you're absolutely right that they're slow, right? They're slow to adapt, and that's any media company, and that's in any industry, because I think, you know, what they face is all big companies is the common term, tech term that you hear about is the innovator's dilemma. Is like, why invest in something over here when, you know, they're making so much money over there? Why even think about that? And so I think recently in the last few years that they've taken, you know, a little bit more seriously as obviously there's cord cutters, and obviously consumers have a lot more options than they did 10 or plus years ago. So I think, though, regardless whether if you're with a legacy media company or with a new company, everyone's kind of, they don't know where that puck is going. Everyone's kind of running around a little bit with their heads cut off and trying different things. So I don't think anybody's safe right now in this industry, whether you're a startup or a legacy company. And I think, you know, there's so many options for consumers, and at the end of the day, the consumer is going to decide where they're going to put their eyeballs and where they're going to spend their money.
How many employees do you have now?
I think we're at 175-ish or so, yeah.
Was there a number above which you felt the culture changed? Like really drastic shift, not like obviously when you're 5 and 10, like every number is a bit different.
Yeah, I don't think there's an exact number, you know. I think if anybody tells you that, I feel like I've always been, for me, I've always focused on culture as a CEO. Partly because I worked prior to starting Jukin, I worked at so many really crappy places where the culture was just terrible, where you were afraid to speak up, where it was very isolating. Departments were isolated, they weren't talking to each other, communicating with each other, they weren't collaborating with each other. There was afraid to lose your job if you made one single mistake, if you tried something new. And really, we kind of did the opposite over at Jukin, where we want collaboration, we want creativity. We don't want you to feel isolated, we want you to feel included in everything. I want someone the lowest on the totem pole to be speaking up, you know, and not saying, go get out of here. You know, we want to hear everyone's voice. Everyone's voice can be heard. Open door policy. I worked at a place I never met the owner or CEO. I have glasses on my doors, and my door is always open unless I have a meeting. Yeah. It's always open. Anyone can come on by. Sometimes they come by too much, but I really do welcome that and respect that. And so I think, to answer your question directly, is there a number? No, but I do think there's different times within your company's history that if you don't stay focused, and if you don't stay focused to the messaging and communication, you could lose that at 10 employees, you can lose that messaging at 100, you can lose that messaging at 1,000. I think, you know, you have to be a broken record. I think it starts with the person at the top, the most senior management, to establish that culture and bring that culture all the way down, and you just have to keep repeating yourself over and over and over and over again. I think you have to have realistic expectations of people that, you know, you're the CEO and you're the founder, or you're going to do a lot more than everyone else, you know? And so the people that are maybe started with you in the first 20 or so people, they may not be that same 20 people, you know, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, or when you ever have an exit. You have to have realistic expectations, and I think sometimes as a founder, you have unrealistic expectations. You're almost naive a little bit, and I think that's natural, but you learn that along the way by getting burned and by making mistakes. And, you know, I think at the end, you just want the best for your people, and you have to definitely set the tone for the rest of the company. And so I don't think there's an exact number.
What is one thing you learned over your trajectory at Jukin that you wish you knew on day one that would have saved you a lot of stress, money, time?
Geez, I think you have to realize that you can't stress about the small things and everything. I think early on you stress a lot about the small things, right? You stress about things that may not matter to the overall picture. Even though you do really care about the details, you have to learn when to let them go. I think also having time to myself, whether it's vacations, reflection moments. I think at some point you always have to feel like being a CEO or founder, you have to be on 24/7. You have to show that you're on. And I think I would have told myself, relax a little bit. You don't always have to be on, you know?
Yeah, one of the things I like about like traveling, I purposely came down to LA, took meetings, but Tuesday was like I had a couple meetings by the pool, purposely just to kind of different set of mind instead of in an Uber running to meetings. And I feel that's the main thing that you do have to, you're human and you have to balance out yourself. Good stuff. Is there anything else we haven't covered you want to touch on?
Oh man, you've asked some really great questions. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think you've learned through your career as a founder CEO?
A lot of things. You know, when you're ambitious and when you are a young entrepreneur, you're very idealistic, and I think you define what success looks like. And what I've learned is success is subjective, relative, and fluid. And yeah, you know, like everything you said is kind of, it captures it.
I saw you smiling a little bit.
No, that's it. Like you have to be realistic with the expectations you have for others. You have to communicate. You know, I'm very hard on myself, but to the point that sometimes I go, that's not sustainable, you know? So you have to kind of, you know, live and learn. That's basically it. And the main thing though that I've realized more than anything else is you have to be enjoying yourself. That doesn't mean that there's no pain, that there's not grunt work, that you're gonna love every minute, but when you feel like in your gut or in your head that like, hey, I'm not enjoying this, that's a good sign for you to kind of do almost like an audit of culture, communications, projects. And I got to a point 2 years ago that I said, okay, we've grown a bit too comfortable and a bit too risk averse. So I went crazy and did 10 things at once. And then I kind of realized that, okay, why are we doing these extra 10 things? Maybe there's 3 or 4, like to the point of focus. And yeah, just listening to that little voice, sometimes you have the answer and you know, you just have to be comfortable in your own skin to say, hey, we tried these things, not everything works, we're going to focus on these things. And but your main thing is culture. I feel if you have a healthy culture and an open communication, you could solve everything. But if your culture is toxic, it doesn't really matter what your operations are because eventually the train's off the rails.
Yeah, I think I read someone said culture beats strategy, you know, any day of the week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you so much for
Always
having
nice
me.
chatting.
Yeah, absolutely.